Also, we are developing a big, large language model, which we call Agri-LLM. So where we can help our farmers. When they ask some questions, some queries, we can help them in a better way. So the AI Agri-LLM is also we are developing at IIT Ropar. And whatever the solution, what we have developed in IIT Ropar, they are made in IIT Ropar, including the electronics. It's not like that we assemble the components. We make all electronics, and we are, for example, our weather station are installed all over the India right now. And our weather station has an accuracy of 99% given by IMD department in Pune. So we are setting up a weather station in UP, Punjab, Haryana, Andhra, J&K, so many states. So they can get accurate weather data, our farmers can, and they can also get the soil tested in a better way, so they can grow their crops in a different manner or very productive manner. So this is our aim, and we are in talking terms with the FPOs and farmers directly actually. So this gives us also a due kind of feedback where we are working directly with the farmers. And in Punjab, some of the farmers are very progressive, so they are adopting this technology. And of course, we are working with the Andhra also, and we are working in UP also. Being a bigger state, so we are putting all this weather station, at least one in one Gram Panchayat. And the cost is very effective and it's very scalable. We have put the cost almost around 15,000 Indian rupees only. So it's very cheap solution for farmers. And same thing, it can give not only the weather, but it also gives the information about your rain, radiation, wind speed, and the soil temperature, humidity of your soil in your field. So this gives you a multidimensional weather station with very high accuracy. And based on this data, we can make perfect or responsible AI models. And in the end, the data is data is oil for today, actually. Our minister was saying day before yesterday, because he was an oil minister, petroleum minister, he was saying, I didn't know that data will also become a petrol or oil. So data is the oil and the future, and India has the data, so we can make a very responsible and a predictable AI for our farmers so they can increase their productivity, and also the pest control and the crop damage, all this can be studied while sitting and getting this information in their apps. So this is the way IIT Ropar is growing, and we are very proud of that. We got this center, and we have got opportunity to work with Israel, and we are looking forward to work with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Ahuja, for setting the right tone for this session, where what is there from our side, and we look forward to collaborate with Israel on the same side. So we move next to Dr. Gal for his input, listening to what is coming from an Indian side, from the Nodal Center of Excellence for Artificial Intelligence in Agriculture, how you see the potential opportunities of collaborating with the Indian counterparts for the joint AI impact together. All right. Professor Gal, I'll request, as our ambassador has some important assignments lined in a couple of minutes. So before we move to our fellow panelists, I would like, in fact, we all would like to have the thought-provoking session and the vision for India and Israel coming together from His Excellency, from Ambassador himself.
Hello, everybody. I'm really thrilled to be here at the AI Summit, and I want to thank the organizers, IIT Ropar and Maya Sherman from the embassy, as well as welcoming my colleagues from Israel. Thank you for making all the way to come here and speak with us. Imagine a day in which every farmer in India, every one of the millions and millions of farmers, will be able to have in his cell phone the entire knowledge that research has gathered in history and make it available for him to implement in his plot. Whether in a situation that all the weather information, all the knowledge gathered about soil analysis, all the knowledge gathered about the quality of the right seeds to put, all the knowledge guiding him when to plant, what to plant, when to fertilize, when to irrigate, how much to irrigate. The satellite imagery that would analyze the soil, the water in the soil, the humidity of the soil, will be available not just for the entire plot, for every plant in his plot. Imagine that all that would be available thanks to the huge amount of knowledge that has been gathered and that is accumulated by AI. Well, the news, ladies and gentlemen, is that this technology is already available. And we are going to use the platform that we have built with the government of India in the last 30 years to make this knowledge available to each and every farmer. We, as you know, have built together with a huge investment from the Indian government that has spent between $3 to $4 million in each one of the 34 centers of excellence that are spread all around India, with modern irrigation systems, modern nurseries that supply subsidized seedlings to the farmers, seedlings that have the qualities that are required in order to get better crops and to use less pesticides. This is all working today, and we are going to add a layer that we started actually experimenting this year in 9 plots in Punjab, Haryana, and Maharashtra. And these plots are being demonstrating the technology of an Israeli company called NDrip. You might want to look it up, NDrip.com. This company has developed a system that actually not only does almost all of what I mentioned before, but also does it with a requirement of almost zero energy. And why is that? It's because NDrip is using a very specific technology in which the irrigation chip doesn't need a lot of pressure in the water. You can use actually gravity to irrigate a plot of 150 meters on 150 meters. And this system that costs no more than $2,000 and can be useful for a farmer for several years can gather with sensors the analysis of the ground and transmit it directly to an AI center that actually helps the farmer and tells him what is the situation of his soil, when to plant, when to harvest, when to fertilize. Everything is available now. NDrip has already implemented, is applied in several fields around the country in private farms. I personally visited one of them about a month ago near Agra in Uttar Pradesh. And now we have finished establishing, as I said, 9 demonstration plots in the centers of excellence. We hope that after the Ministry of Agriculture analyzes the results of these plots, they will decide to adopt it nationwide. And once that happens, the implications for the average Indian farmer will be huge. So we are so happy that thanks to the trust that we have built with the Indian government, thanks to the cooperation we have been having with agricultural research institutes such as IIT Ropar, we are bringing this news to the agricultural sector in India, to the farmers of India, and I know that as much as we have succeeded so far in getting modern irrigation systems to millions and millions of farmers around the country, we are going to do the same with AI, thanks to technologies like NDrip and many other technologies that together we will bring to this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the vibrant words and the thought that you have shared with us. Of course, the success lies in joint collaboration and together, not just starting with the Agra, but of course, reaching to Punjab with IIT Ropar. Thank you. Thank you for your words. Now I jump back to Professor Gal for his perspective on how the way forward for India and Israel coming together to take it forward from here.
Well, I don't know if you know that in Israel there's a labor shortage right now. So when there's a labor shortage, what do? actually. Is you have one option is to raise salaries for attract people. Another way is to find more workers. And we're trying to find workers. We can't find workers anywhere. And at the same time, there's an alternatives to implement automation and start working with new tools and the Gen AI and the LLM models and all of the models fits for the artificial intelligence right now allows us to make this technology available for everyone. For instance, if you know, the democratization of the technology allows us, for each one of us, to be a developer in that building applications. This allows us for everyone during agriculture, when you're in the field of agriculture and other businesses as well, to develop things by your own. And each one of us has this potential to become some kind of inventor. And this artificial intelligence, and that's one thing that we're doing in Israel, I think, is allows us to work with this new technology to fit together and to find the best way to coordinate, allows all of the people to be part of this process. And that's something we're trying to do in Israel, and I know you're trying to do that as well in India, to make this technology available for everyone, to use it more commonly. This allows us to make this quantum leap in working with being more efficient, being more productive, and so there's a lot of things, a lot of working with smart agriculture in Israel, a lot of practices, what to do with the crops and understanding, working with data. For each one of us, this technology has become available. So that's something I think it's one advantage of working together, do joint ventures, in order to allow more people to be part of this process. What we do, for instance, at the Israel Employment Services, in Israel, is like trying to find, to work on both sides of the aisle, working with employers, understanding, introducing a new technology, and at the same time introducing also skills for the labor market in order them to know how to use this technology. Sometimes it's very basic, and that's something we're trying to develop, and I think that's a lot of pros in this kind of interventions, and there's a lot for us to bring, and a lot of things for us to understand and to know, and I think working together allows us to implement that very efficiently.
Thank you so much, Professor Gal, for sharing these thoughts and, of course, collaborating together to understand the pain points from both the sides and how we can jointly work together for this. Now, for a different perspective, as we were having a pre-introduction chat with Professor Dove, so would like to have your thoughts on how the seeding of this collaboration can take forward in terms of modernizing agriculture.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to thank Maya and the Embassy of Israel and IIT Ropar for hosting this. I want to actually talk about some governance issues that my institute is thinking about an emerging technology in this space. A lot of people, when they talk about AI and biotech, talk about automation, they talk about data, they talk about sensors, they talk about information. I want to talk about a novel area, again, where we are thinking about governance in this space. And really quickly, I'm totally switching track. So all of life on the planet follows the exact same rules for the most part. We're all made up of DNA. DNA is comprised of how many letters? Anyone know? 4. That's right. And DNA letters make up words that we call codons. Those codons translate into amino acids, which are the basis for our proteins. Each codon is 3 letters long. That means the dictionary of DNA words is, any mathematicians here? The dictionary of DNA words is 64 words. That's what we have, 64 words of DNA in the entirety of life on the planet, for the most part, with some exceptions. Interestingly enough, what that means, if there's only 20 amino acids that we have 64 words for 20 amino acids, which means that we have what we call a degenerate system. We have a lot of redundancy in the system. And what is emerging now is the technology facilitated by AI for refactoring the human genome, or for refactoring biotechnological crops. What does refactoring mean? That means that we can take a codon that is redundant, and we can add something, and we can change it. We can change it to allow not only optimization facilitated by artificial intelligence, but we can actually introduce novel aspects to proteins. We can introduce non-organic components to proteins, which creates huge opportunities in the area of biotechnology. Thinking about this, though, thinking about the governance issues in this space, there are a lot of really interesting issues that have to be tackled before we can promote this sort of technology. For example, you have to think about patenting. Who owns these emerging technologies? Who facilitates this? Who will implement this? We have to think about, to some degree, whether or not there are concerns with the development of Frankenstein-like crops that we don't, what we call unknowable unknowables. What will happen down the road when we start changing the fundamental aspects of genomes? We have to think about whether or not this qualifies as genetically modified organisms or not. Unfortunately, we also have to think about the weaponization of this technology, whether or not you can create, whether or not malicious actors can create novel sorts of crops that are effectively undetectable because our technologies don't allow for the detection of these sort of novel refactored genomes. Another concern is that the pace of artificial intelligence in allowing us to refactor these genomes sort of outpaces the governance that we currently have, and thinking about how to implement governance today that will be useful tomorrow when this emerging technology erupts. How do we think about those things as well? Of course, AI provides low barriers of entry, so whereas in the past you may need a large university laboratory to develop these refactored genomes, nowadays you can have biohackers in their garages developing these technologies. How do we govern this? How do we protect ourselves from malicious actors? How do we protect ourselves from negligent actors in this sort of space? Thinking about sort of the consolidation of farming, where we have optimized sort of biotechnological outputs, and those optimizations are owned by large corporations. What does that mean for the millions of farmers here in India and abroad? And of course, ultimately, who decides whether or not we move on with this? Who decides whether or not we pass on this technology? How do we decide how to implement these technologies? These are all questions for emerging technologies my institute is thinking about. These are things that we, both in Israel and in India, have to think about the implementation of artificial intelligence in the biotechnological sector. A lot of very interesting questions, very few good answers. So thank you very much for the time.
Thank you. Thank you so much for bringing this concept of ATGC, the 4 letters that play a very important role in making up the DNA that makes up the whole biome. Thank you. Thank you for your perspective. Now, I'll request, and before that, we welcome you, Professor Victor, a research scientist from Institute of Agriculture and Biosystem Engineering, to this particular session. And we would love to have your thoughts in terms of how you see AI for agriculture, specifically happening in India and Israel.
Thank you very much for inviting me and being here. I'm very happy, and thank you all for being here. I'm a researcher, I'm a scientist, I'm an engineer in the Institute of Ag Engineering and Biosystems Engineering in Israel, working in AI in agriculture, and I want to bring here a probably completely different aspect than those that I have heard the last few hours that I've been in this summit. We do research in agriculture in order to solve the problem of food security. We need to provide food to billions of people, and this exponentially increases during the last years. And agriculture is the way that we have to feed all these people. And using the conventional methods of agriculture, usually they pollute the environment, and they are not sustainable. The new technologies that they are now used in agriculture, like precision agriculture and digital agriculture, which have been developed from the last years of the previous century, 1990s, 2000 and so forth, they keep using both technological systems in order to produce a lot of data, a lot of measurements to understand what is happening, and make the agricultural production more efficient. And this has been a struggle of a lot of years of how to use all this information in order to make agriculture more efficient. The last 10 years, AI has come in. And suddenly, all this data that is gathered and measured around the world in different crops, in different countries, in different climates, they can all be combined together in order to get some knowledge or some incentives that were not so evident before. But are we there? Because we are there probably in some other disciplines, like when you ask your ChatGPT or Gemini about things to have some knowledge and some incentives, then they give you in different topics. And those are the topics that the AI models have been trained upon. Those topics are usually that all the data is available in digital form, and the models can be trained. But is this the case in agriculture? Probably not yet, at least. All this knowledge and all this data exists in agriculture, but we cannot really use it. We cannot make an agricultural advisor who is a robust and generalized advisor all over the world. It's different in India, different in Israel, different in Europe, different in South America. Now, but we can go and try to generalize this and build AI models, LLM models, large language models, in order to do that. But AI in agriculture is also in a much more basic place. We use we develop in agriculture systems like detection, system for detecting weeds in the field in order to spray just the points where the weeds are detected. We develop systems that they detect diseases and pests in a very early stages in order to treat them locally. We develop systems that they can see how the plants are developing. We develop systems that they link between the phenotype, how the plants look, and the genotype, how the genes are. And here I refer to what you are talking about, the genotypes. AI are today tools that they improve and they enable the genetic selection, not genetic engineering, but genetic selection of varieties that are more resilient to the climate change, more resilient to heat waves, more resilient to salts in the soil, and so forth. So AI tools in agriculture come in many different levels, from the level of being in the field and detecting and doing things, to the level of having the knowledge and address the whole management, the management strategy. But this is a little bit far from today, because the data that we have in agriculture is not shared as it is in other disciplines in the world. And also it's not in the standard format. Standardization is a very difficult and problem that has to be addressed in agriculture. But the AI, they have the possibility to solve these problems and get agriculture in a much better place. The adoption of AI in agriculture still has other barriers, like the legal barrier, the financial barrier has to be economical, and these are still challenges to be met.
Thank you so much. And you rightly said that in terms of adoption, there are a number of challenges and barriers that together we have to come forward. With this, we come to the end of the inaugural panel. I would request Professor Rajiv Ahuja for the final words on behalf of our Israel friends and from an Indian representation for his final remarks.
So it's already well said, actually, Radhika. And we are going to have a very active collaboration and to work together in a team, bit from Indian side and from Israel side. And I'm sure that when we will work together, and there were a lot of other opportunities will come up also. And then because he has said very many diverse things actually. So we have to think about that also, and which we were not thinking before. And it's good to have a people with a different mindset coming, and we are going to work together. And I'm sure that with the support of Israel government and with the Indian government support, and we are going to use AI for the best of our farmers. So we can make farmer most prosperous farmers in this India using AI. So this is our wish, and the farmer should be the main priority here. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the wonderful panel and the thought-provoking inputs that we have received from all the speakers. All right. So with this, we thank everyone for joining us. We move to the next panel. And for that, I'll request my colleague, Dr. Mukesh, to please be on the floor.
Thank you, Radhika, for moderating this panel wonderfully. And to all the speakers as well for joining us from Israel as well as from India. We also really, thanks to all the audience who were able to come here in the last panel of the day. While we have another one more largely from the investment community side, and when we talk about the agri-tech industry, it's very important to have the investment side as well, and from the corporate side. I would like to request my panelist over here now, where we will be having discussion around bridging nations through the AI, and also talking about scaling AI innovation for the public good. I would like to call first panelist or the moderator for this, Ms. Maya, a good friend from the Israel Embassy side. I also would like to call Ms. Nimisisa on the stage. To Ms. Urmi, please, if she could also join us. And Mr. Mayuris, a good friend from the Sea Fund side. Simran, can you help them? Simran will help you to put people's name there. So we'll be having a discussion around that, but before this, I also wanted to give some insight about IIT Ropar in terms of the investment and the agri ecosystem that we are building. As of now, we host almost 250 plus startups where we have made investment of somewhere around 17 crore plus in the last 2.5 years. And very proud to say that this particular portfolio has raised almost 120 crore from the external community side, from the VC side. And we are also very proud to say that when we look out to the Annam, Awadh, and various ministries like Startup India and all, these all have been playing out a very powerful role in terms of enabling out the agri ecosystem. I will be handing over this to Maya from here, and I hope that we will have a very insightful conversation and a discussion around it. Thank you once again, and Maya, over to you.
So hello everyone, long day, but I think a lot of insights and quite exciting milestone for India with the summit. And very grateful, first of all, to have a representative from our government presenting a bit about the work. And generally very grateful for the work with the IIT Ropar over the last few months. It's been very intense, but I think a lot of very important milestones. I'm also quite excited about the panelists we have today. Again, dear colleagues and friends, but I think also bringing fascinating expertise across the ecosystem in India, from the VC space, from the governance space, big tech. So we'll be very glad to hear your insight as we go forward. As we embark, I'll be glad perhaps a quick overview from your side, a bit on how first of all, how are you perceiving this big event and how it's relevant for you? But if you can share a bit on some of the challenges that you're seeing about cross-border innovation today. And how do you think we should go forward, and if AI is relevant at all in this regard? Is that with you, Mahesh?
So, IIT Ropar team, thanks for having me. I'm trying to think when was the last time I was in a panel where we had as many women as we have in this panel. It's largely all male or a token women. So kudos to you. You could have very well had an all-women panel also. But we'll run with what you have. I was observing what you have up here. The transcription is at about 85-90%, but the translation is almost 95-100%. So kudos to what Bashini is doing, right? And we need more of such programs in India. Let me give you some introduction of what I do. I was the earlier lot that GE hired in the country to do data science all the way back in the early noughties, which obviously became machine learning and which is now AI to all of us. We've been making investments for almost 15 years. As a fund, almost 8 years. Deep tech is a focus area of focus for us. When we spoke to our investors in 2018 that we want to do deep tech, we were laughed out of the room. And for us, deep tech was semiconductor, space, defense. Similar or investors who have an inclination to invest, when we go and say that we want to make areas in these investments in these areas, they're not blinking. They're still not laughing away, seeing money, but they're not blinking. What is the relevance of this this event? I think on two parts. One, we clearly need this. I think this is the third or fourth event.
First and the biggest.
Yeah, but fourth, right? There was one in the UK, France. Correct. I think it is about time that an emerging economy like India has to start playing or having a seat at the table. I'll tell you why. I think some data came out a few weeks back as to which countries are how well disposed towards AI. The West, there's a whole lot of fear. China, there's a whole lot of optimism. So is the case in the Far East. I think we are somewhere in the middle. This is a different beast for sure. But you can't be running away from a technology. It has never worked historically and it won't work this way also. So you have to have a positive predisposition and focus on what are the positives that it can give. One small example, I don't know how many of us had problems getting in, but it's criminal in this day and age where there is such loss of all our times and productivity, right? There are three things that are important for our economies to grow. There's capital, there's labor, and there's productivity. Till this current burst of productivity that the US has had, productivity has plateaued. But if we have aspirations to be a developed country in the next 25, 30 years, I think AI has to play a crucial role. What is working is obviously all these elements, and I'll pause there and I'll let the other panelists speak.
Thank you for having me. I'm Urmi. I work for a company called Salesforce. So we are majorly into agents, and this is something that we've invested in. And we're looking at deploying agents for public good and public use cases in healthcare, in finance, and incredibly sensitive areas as and when we look at it. So a big part of the responsibility that we have is deploying this responsibly at scale, so innovating but also having the right guardrails so that this is something that builds trust. And Maya, when you asked about some of the biggest challenges that we have when we look at deploying agents or AI, is institutional trust, is telling people that, can you trust this AI system? Is your data secure? Are they able to use this for longer? And I think that's one of the main conversations we have when we think about adoption, because for a company like ours, it's great to have a product, but you need people to understand the value of it. You need people to adopt it and use it, make it relevant in their daily lives. So how can they do that if they don't trust the system? So it's also not just educating people about the risks or the benefits or what is it that they can control, what AI can do, cannot do, what they should be mindful of, but also looking at the ecosystem around it that supports large-scale adoption of technology for a sustained period. So those are some of the things that we're working on, where we're trying to solve for. So not just the technology, but the human element of trust.
Hello, hi, I'm Nemesisa, and it's really an honor to be here. Thanks to IIT Ropar and the Embassy of Israel to organize this very important discussion. When we talk about agriculture, in India, half of the population, half of the working population is actually engaged in agriculture. And only 1/5 of the GDP is being, agriculture is only contributing to the GDP. It's less than 15%. 65% of the farmers have got smartphones, and 80% of all fresh water which is used in India is used in agriculture. While if you think about it, at least 20% of all agricultural produce is damaged. So the case for AI in agriculture is so strong. And when we say today we have so many startups doing so many things, out of 200,000 startups in India, only 1,500 to 2,000 are actually working in agri-tech. So this discussion is very important. I have been part of this ecosystem since, I think, 2011. I am working for an organization called Hunch Ventures. It's a family office. We have deployed more than $100 million across sectors, industries, within India, outside India. One of the last investments that we made was in an agri-tech startup, which is doing a farm-to-fork model, while we are also looking at creating food parks across different states in India. And I'm here today to talk, like the work that I do with The Circle, which is an organization doing cross-border startup programs. I sit at the intersection of ecosystems, helping innovation find market, or actually supporting them to face market realities. And in AI, as much as we are talking today, there are a lot of market realities that has to be faced by the startups, by those who are creating innovation. Because if you think of something like agriculture, which is the bread and butter of people, so many people, to get them to use it at scale, there are many challenges, but if that happens, then the kind of output we will get, that would be unprecedented. So I think it's a very important discussion, and it's great that we are having it today.
Wonderful, thank you, three of you. Mukesh, I mean, since you're such a wonderful practitioner, maybe you want to share a bit from your side. How do you see the biggest challenges on cross-border innovation?
So I think I'll take very less time on that. We had a wonderful insight from all the members as an opening remark. But largely when you talk about the agri, and we were having this conversation just before this, the biggest challenge is on the adoption. We are talking about a community which works, as a conventional mechanism. And even if there is 1% chance of failure, we are talking about going out the entire crop cycle as a waste over there. So it means that whatever technology you are building, be it a startup, be it a government tech, or be it a technocrat, that technology has to have 100% efficiency and has to be 100% accuracy. The moment you say 1% fails, we are talking about one particular crop cycle, and not only that, there's a very heavy reason that government is not going behind the GM crop, because the crop also have a huge impact on the humanity over there. And this is where you have to be very precise, both in terms of adoption and in terms of building out that technology, which is one of the biggest challenges that we find while working with the agri community there.
Fantastic, thank you for this. Again, so many questions can come out of it. Mrs. I'd be glad to start with you. I mean, with the Hunch and the Circle, you've invested in so many programs and cross-border programs worldwide. What are the next countries that you feel will lead cross-border innovation in the next decade?
Sure, Maya. I think the future of AI will not happen via some specific countries, but it will be through clusters. So from where I see, there are three kinds of clusters. One is the governance setters, those who are defining the rules, which includes the US for, say, models, compute, the kind of investments that are happening over there, and the EU from the regulation standpoint. While the other cluster could be those countries where the use cases are being defined because of the scalable deployments, such as China, India, Brazil. And they say that if something succeeds in India in agriculture, it can succeed anywhere. And I think the third cluster is the high precision, high tech agriculture innovation, which is happening through research and technology being developed in, say, Israel, in Netherlands, in Australia. So I think these clusters are very important, and the future would be the corridors, such as the India-Israel corridor, the India-ASEAN corridor, which will prove very, very critical for defining how things grow and scale.
Fantastic. I think, it brings such an interesting input here that while many countries are trying to fight against each other and kind of create this AI supremacy, in the end we are seeing clusters being formed. Across different technologies, I think especially AI is a great example for this, with the Paxilica, Israel and India are part of this, but it's true, I think that's exactly what's perhaps setting the next decade of future technologies going forward. Would it be full multilateralism or perhaps still the arms race? I think it's still a question, but wonderful insight. Mr. Mayarash, of course, CFUN has been such an early believer in deep tech. I'll be glad to hear a bit more on your broader vision for deep tech investing. How do you see instruments like, again, Research, Development, Innovation Fund shaping the next decade of technologies?
I think we've come to a very critical point, at least with what's happening in India. There'll be a fair amount of us who've probably studied in the US, have been beneficiaries of programs like DARPA, NSF. And for the longest time, we were talking with our policymakers, we need to have something similar to that. It's taken a long time coming, but we finally have a program. Our GDP is probably $2,000 or there. Sorry, our per capita income is thereabouts. But for a country at our scale of development, we have a $12.5 billion program that brings together what DARPA does, what NSF does, and what the Eurostar does in Europe. I think that is going to be absolutely crucial because all basic research and elements of translation research, it has to be and has been historically governed. No investor like us, forget investors, even angel investors will not participate where the startup is at a lab stage and it can't even move to a product. So that is going to be absolutely crucial. The first and second order effects of this are there is going to be enormous amount of money. There's going to be relatively, for our size, a flood of money in the ecosystem. Now, a lot of this, like with most government programs, may be wasted, but we've seen historically that there have been platforms, there have been startups that have been built out. The Indian Digital Public Goods is a great example. And there is absolute hope that the AI mission, the quantum mission, the DLI scheme, which we have for semiconductors, defense, that is absolutely going to work out well. What the government did smartly was a few years back, they figured out where are the top 3-4 areas where the country has the most forest outflow. And shouldn't be a surprise, oil, commodities was the first one, the second one was defense, the third one was electronic manufacturing. And they passed each one of this, had schemes for them. So for the longest time, investors wouldn't touch anything that was manufacturing related. But things have changed so dramatically, like you have the 800-pound gorilla in the VC ecosystem, which is Axel, talking about or putting out a thesis about smart manufacturing. Right? So whoever are the manufacturing or the real world physical intelligence kind of founders, I think these are great days. It's not going to change dramatically, but it's definitely better than not having any money. Commoditized manufacturing, there's nothing there. But if you're doing something along these lines, there's absolutely money. Coming to agriculture, the problems are well known, right? I mean, small land parcels, data is strewn all across. So much so that defense is an area most investors will not touch. But we are looking at a startup where the sucker we are getting is, oh, okay, it's dual use. There is assured income from defense. And okay, there's an agriculture use case, so maybe we can live with that. So that's where agriculture falls on the hierarchy of investments. The first set of agri startups have been these platforms, the farm to fork kind of place. But going and addressing the problems that a farmer faces, throwing earth observation, throwing satellite imagery, throwing data, and the ability to serve these products at the minimal price points that we have, that is still a problem that is still has to be cracked in India.
Wonderful insight. I think that it's true that in many ways, this kind of hierarchy of investments put agriculture aside, but in many ways I also feel that, again, this shift into dual-use technologies has enabled perhaps a new avenue for agri-tech startups as a whole. Even, I guess, from the Israeli perspective, we know we have dozens of centers of excellence in the country. They always worked on agriculture. Now we're trying to shift a bit more into agri-tech in them. So hopefully this is something we'll be able perhaps to, I guess, give a different lens or a different avenue for agri-tech startups to get the right investments, especially as, again, economy-wise, it's clearly needed and relevant. Urmi, now a bit to you. Again, I think you have different hats, of course, the wonderful work in Salesforce, but again, also I know the wonderful AI fellowship from Ricina, where you did such great work around climate AI, and I wanted to hear a bit more from you on how you see India positioning itself as a responsible AI leader, especially in agri-tech and public good cases.
That's a great question. I think India has a few problems that it's identified very clearly or that it wants to solve for, what their priorities are in this space. One is scale. The other is innovation, but inclusive innovation. And it's also striking a balance between regulation and innovation. So some of the ways in which India has been doing this is through, as we mentioned, creating high-quality data sets. AI Kosh is the program, I think, and what they're trying to do is create these data sets which will feed into more precise interventions from AI systems and will really help solutions, especially in critical sectors like healthcare and agriculture. So, and apart from that, leveraging DPI has also been a priority for India. And it's one of those, it's one of India's best exports to the world in terms of having this public-facing infrastructure that others can use and build on. And to use that in agriculture, to use that in public health or public good cases is one of India's biggest strengths. And we've seen this as becoming very fertile ground for companies and private sector and governments and civil society to really come together and build something together. So it's really providing that foundational architecture or foundational field for companies and other stakeholders to come and collaborate and to build on these principles, to build on accountability, transparency, and create a solution together. So I think it's that field that India is offering, that it wants to be innovative, but it also wants to have those guardrails. It doesn't want to fence itself away from the private sector. And we've also been able to develop a pilot, for example, with the government of Andhra Pradesh, which is looking at regenerative agriculture, again, because of the kind of focus that India has, that it wants to be collaborative. And I think that's something that the world can really learn from.
Fantastic. I think that, in the end, seeing the level of government investment and relevance in this sector, it's not something that you're seeing all over the world. I think that India is definitely pioneering this discussion and narrative. So thank you for this. Nemasisa, back to you. Again, I think that cross-border innovation has become kind of your second name in a way, and again, there are some upcoming delegations coming again to Korea and Taiwan, and a lot of very exciting milestones ahead for Hunch Venture. I will be glad to hear from you, if you were to pitch in a way, what do you think makes India as, again, a perfect destination for global Agri-AI startups today, for any other countries? And again, Israel is one, but how would you say that India is currently positioned?
Sure. Thank you, Maya. I think we are in very exciting times. India can be the perfect test bed for all sorts of AI solutions, particularly in agriculture and agri-tech. I think there is lots of opportunity. The kind of data that can be made available right now, I don't think it is there, but it can be made available. The kind of use cases we can have, things that so many farmers, multiple kind of crops, climate issues, inefficient supply chains, all sorts of use cases are there. So I think that is one place where a lot of testing can be done. Second is, I think Mayuresh already mentioned about the digital public infrastructure, and I think all the panelists have mentioned, which India has created, and the AI innovation is evolving as the infrastructure is evolving. So I think that's a great place to be, because when both are growing together, there is a whole opportunity of, again, testing and coming to real solutions which can be scaled fast. And the final thing is a very pilot-ready market. The corporates are interested. The government is ready to provide sandboxes. The startups want to work within India, outside India, whether it is, Bihar or Uttar Pradesh or Vietnam, Southeast Asia. the founders are very hungry to go and test and deploy and get new market opportunities. So I think it's a great time. And if, if you look at it in an overall ecosystem manner also, I think India is not just a market to enter right now. It's a market from where you can build and scale to the world.
I'm convinced. What wonderful words, Saeed. And I think that, if you look for a moment at the size of the Impact Summit and, the level of scholars coming from all over the world to India, I think it shows the level of rigor and scale that the Indian ecosystem is bringing today. Mayuresh, back to you. Clearly, again, a lot of work and great work done by C-Fund. You're managing over 250 million crores over sectors. But I'll be glad to hear a bit more from you. How do you differentiate AI and Agri-AI from other frontier deep tech technologies, especially as you were mentioning the difficulties in investment? So I'll be glad to hear from you how you're perceiving it and what would be the right way to reach it from your angle.
See, we can't play the US game. We just don't have the domestic capital to throw at problems, right? We don't have the billions of dollars to go out and buy compute and do LLMs. Neither can we play the Chinese game, where they've finally passed out manufacturing with the AI. We've got to find our own way. We have to solve our India-specific problems. We are a voice-first nation, and we have many languages. So anything that is being done by somebody sitting in the US, I don't think Indian founders should be even trying to solve it by the same playbook. I'll give you an example. The old SaaS playbook, hitting a 1 million in ARR within 2-3 years was a monumental achievement. That has gone out of the window. You hear crazy stories, and these are on the consumer side. Startups hitting $100 million in 6 months. The best I've seen in India is somebody doing $500,000 ARR in 45 days. That doesn't compound to even 10 million in 5 years. So how do you play that game? As a fund, we are betting a lot on physical intelligence in the real world. Things will change dramatically here too, but not to the extent that we are seeing on the software side of things. There's still things to be played out in the next 5 to 10 years. And I think agriculture, if we solve all the problems that India has, I think that falls in the sweet spot of that. You can't run a startup having Silicon Valley salary level, cost levels with Indian paying power. If you can crack that puzzle, if you can start making products, especially on the agri side for Bharat, as we call it, beyond the metros, tier 1 cities, I think there's a huge, the market is huge, and you won't find this market anywhere else.
Wonderful. Thank you for this. Omi, last question for you. You mentioned the very interesting initiative and pilot with the government of Andhra Pradesh. I'll be glad generally to hear from you. How do you see, again, big tech companies such as Salesforce enabling this work with governments to be able to move, again, AI pilots into national level impact progress? Because the question is also about the scale.
That's the million-dollar question that we're all trying to solve for. But I think two things that we're trying to focus on, I think other companies who are working with governments at the pilot stage are trying to focus on, is co-creation. So sort of from the ideational stage itself to deployment, involving stakeholders at every step. So that is, for us, it could be the government of Andhra Pradesh, but it also involves other stakeholders like farmers groups, or SAGs or NGOs that are working in this space. So if we are able to conceptualize the idea with as many pitfalls, as many difficulties from the inception stage, it sort of becomes embedded by design in the solution rather than something that surprises us towards the end. It's easier said than done, but this is the approach that works and is something that we're striving to achieve. The other is also taking the ecosystem along with you. So having an ecosystem approach. What I mean by that is focusing on skilling and capacity building so that people are able to understand the benefits of the technology that they are going to use and deploy. That is the only way that you see sustained adoption. That is the only way that you see an ecosystem growing with you when you're trying to encourage a solution. So it's sort of taking everyone with you when you're developing, and also taking everyone's ideas with you, co-creating. These are two of the pathways that I think a lot of us are exploring.
Fantastic, thank you. I absolutely agree. I mean, co-creation is key. And I think, the wonderful work that Salesforce has done, I think definitely is making this kind of change, I feel, in the ecosystem. Now, as we are nearing to an end, I'd be glad for 30 seconds for you. We've had great insights on the ecosystem, how VCs are enabling the ecosystem, how we're able to push the government, investment, VCs. In the end, farmers are the core. How do you see the future? And more interestingly, how do we make sure that farmers are not left behind when we're pushing these innovations? But again, crisp 30-second interventions. Mukesh, to this one, I'll also be glad to hear from you.
I think, rightly said by all the members, we are at an inflection point where we have to talk about farmers. We have to talk about the aid. We have to talk about the funds that can be deployed by the government, and also so that the community could grow together for the betterment of the impact and betterment of the society.
I'll just say one line. I think farmers, as the community is today across the country, they need trust, and they need to trust the technology, they need to trust the people who are creating the technology, and for that they need two things. One, it is introduced to them by people they already know, intermediaries, and B, they are educated. And when they are educated, the support is also given to them once they have got a solution and they are facing challenges that they don't know how to solve. So if those things are done, I think it will be a great boost.
I think we've spoken about co-creation and capacity building, but one element that I would introduce is also working on the explainability aspect of the models. So the farmer or whoever the stakeholder is should know where AI has come into the decision making and what is the process that has led to that decision. It is an ongoing endeavor with most companies trying to figure out the mechanisms to do this, but that should always be the endeavor.
I think I'll echo what your ambassador said. Everybody has the tech in their pocket. The pipe has been laid. India has the lowest cost per GB in the world. It's incumbent on all of us to make sure the intelligence is provided to the farmer at the price point he can afford.
Fantastic. Big rounds of applause for our wonderful panelists. Thank you so much. No, it's been a long day. I don't know if you have time for questions. Do we have? I think we don't have. So you still try to catch us afterwards. Thank you so much for the panelists and IIT Ropar again. Wonderful to have been working on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Maya, for wonderfully moderating the session. Before we conclude with this session, we have a special gratitude towards speaker, and we want to express this with our felicitation from our side. Maya, I would like you to please step forward for felicitating our chief patron, Professor Rajiv Ahuja, for steering the session. Please, sir.
It's been a very long day, man.
Thank you. Now I request Professor Rajiv Ahuja and Maya to be please in front to felicitate Professor Gal for wonderful insights from your side. We can come on. A special gratitude to Professor Dove. A huge round of applause. Now we want to felicitate the wonderful panel. Maya yourself has moderated it from technology to investments. So I'll request Professor Ahuja to felicitate Maya for wonderful moderating the session. Ms. Nemisesa, please. Ms. Urmi. And not the least, man of the panel, Mahiresh. So with this, we conclude our panel, and I request every one of you to please jump in here for a group photograph. Especially I'm requesting IIT Ropar team and our friends from Israel to be here, so we have a group photograph together. I request our speakers to please take a seat, and we'll stand around them to be fit in one single frame. I'll request everyone to be please here, so we'll fit in a group photograph. I'll request everyone to be there with us.
Big hands to Isha and Ankit. It's not the easiest.
आगे आ जाओ.
We'll take a couple of seconds. We have Professor Victor with us. So Professor Ahuja, I'll request you. Sthiti? There he is. Thank you so much.
This is for the
नहीं वो दे दिया उनको. But we had photograph.
Simran, photo?
Photograph ले लो उनसे.